Hi, I'm Carrie Anders. I'm the Fire Billing Supervisor for the state of Colorado. I'm here to help you with this quick webinar. It'll probably take a little over an hour to show you some of the basic functionality within the fire billing system. For 2019 fires and forward, this system will be required for submitting your invoices to the state for reimbursement. The system itself is going to provide a lot of functionality and information that you may need in the future. And we're excited to roll this out and let you know what is available to you. So I'm going to show you right now some of the basic information that you're going to need in order to present a bill to us. This website is the basic website for the Division of Fire Prevention and Control. It contains a lot of useful information that you're going to need, including the training package for this webinar. So please, if you haven't done so already, put pause on your computer right now, go to this website and print out that training guide so you can follow along. You will be able to create packets today while you're in training so that you can learn this software, but you will need this packet in order to help you follow along with what we're covering. As you scroll down on the page, this is where the user guide is for the fire billing system. Please click on that. Also, something that's extremely helpful would be to click on this reimbursement documentation checklist. This gives you all the information that we look for when your package arrives here at the state for payment. So if you familiarize yourself with this information, it will be really helpful in getting your packages pushed through as quickly as possible. So let's start with Colorado Fire Billing. I'm going to be using the test site today because I'll be putting in data that I do not want to retain. But if you want to know what the actual production website is, you need to go to Colorado or co.firebilling.org. That will take you to the sign-in screen where you will be able to move forward. Once again, in your training packet, if you are not already signed up, please contact us. We will issue you a username and password. Your initial sign-on will be your first initial last name and FBS, you'll hear us refer to that. That's Fire Billing System 123. So it'll be capital FBS 123 for your initial sign-on. So let's move over to the actual test site that I'm using. You can see it's a test site down here. Let me hide this button. It says acceptance testing. That's our test site that we use for training purposes. So I wanted you to see this. Some of the history or some of the overview that I need to give you for this new process is that because you are going to be the entities that are saving the paper documentation, you're required to save that for 7 years. That includes anything that you received from the fire, such as a CTR, an OF288, or anything else that you cannot reproduce, needs to be saved for 7 years. We're working with our federal partners right now to try to see if they will accept an electronic version as a system of record. But at this time, the paper versions still need to be retained at your facility. Please only input 2019 or later incidents. We are not accepting anything prior to 2019 within the system. You'll still need to send that in paper and mail it to us. In order to log into this system, here I'll log out right now. In order to log into the system, you must be using Chrome, Edge, Firefox, but do not use Windows Explorer. Our system does not work accurately with Windows Explorer. There's going to be 2 roles that your department can have. I've assigned myself quite a few roles here, but up here is where you're going to be switching your roles if you have more than one. So let's say I was a Denver Fire Department data entry person. Data entry are the people who can actually put the bills into the system to get reimbursed. The SURF manager role, we call it CRRF manager, SURF manager, is the role that I can actually put in employees. And we're going to be covering how to put your employees at the end of the training. But I wanted you to be aware that those two roles are available within our system for you. And you can have both roles or just one role. It really doesn't matter. We will be assigning the surf manager role the ability to run reports. So in case you want to see how many fires you responded to in a year, how much you spent on fires, how many people you've sent out on fires, this reporting tool is going to be very helpful. If you're a data entry person and you also want the ability to run reports, please let us know and we can assign you that role as well. So let's start with the data entry role. For today's training, I'm going to pretend I'm a data entry person at the Denver Fire Department. So all the data that you see in here is fake data, but it will help you understand what you have to go through. So your data entry role allows you to put in bills, as I said. Your surf manager role allows you to put in employee data, personnel time or personnel salaries and benefit information specifically. But once it actually leaves your queue, it's going to come to Colorado. And this is what's going to tell you that information in your queue. So I'm the data entry person for Denver Fire, and I look in my queue, and here's everything that's actually sitting in there. We have asked, you'll see me refer to that a lot during the presentation as we talk about phase 2. Phase 2 is going to be some modifications we've asked the developer to create for Colorado. This system was originally developed for Utah. So I will mention several times throughout the training that there are fields in here that you can just ignore because it's related to Utah. We're going to ask them to suppress those fields in the future so you don't have to see them, but for now, we'll just have you ignore that information. So for phase 2, we've asked for quite a few modifications, and I'll get into some of those specifics as we move along. But here's what you can actually see. And one of the modifications is that you would be able to suppress some of the invoices that have already been paid, so you don't have to keep looking at a big long queue of data. But for now, it's everything. So you've got a data entry role, which is you. So that is telling you right now, you can see the little trash can and the edit button. You are able to, at any time when it is in this data entry queue, modify this bill. You can change it, you can delete it, you can do whatever you want with it because it's sitting within your facility. Once it leaves your facility after you push submit, then it's with the state of Colorado, and you would need to request from us to return it back to you electronically so that you can edit it. As you can see in this case, there's no little trash can anymore. That's because it's not sitting in data entry anymore. It's sitting on our side in what's known as the billing approver role. We have 4 different roles within the state of Colorado. The first role that it's going to move to after you push submit is this one. This billing approver is going to go through that checklist that I just showed you that you should have printed out, and they're going to go through and make sure all that documentation is actually attached to your bill. So they're going to look to make sure your CTRs or your OF288 is attached. Did you attach your resource order? Did you attach all your receipts if you're claiming receipts for travel? Anything that you would need to actually attach to a bill, they're going to be looking for. And their primary role is just an overview. They're not checking all the detail yet. If they find something is missing, they're going to contact you directly and let you know that and return the package in the system to your queue so you can actually add the missing information. As soon as you add it, you can submit it and it comes right back to our queue. Another cool feature of this software is that it allows us to assign it to a person. So who's ever working in the billing approver queue that day can go in and say, oh, I want to take this bill right here. They'll assign it to themselves, and that will be the person that you will be communicating with. You won't get multiple people communicating with you about missing documentation. So once the billing approver says, oh, yes, this package has everything we need, I'm good, they'll hit submit. And when they submit it, it's going to go to a role called coder. The coder is the one who determines financial responsibility for the fire. Who's paying for it? So we're going to pay you, but we need to get reimbursement for whose ever land that fire was on. So U.S. Forest Service, the BLM, whoever owes us the money. So they will determine the coding on your fire. Generally, we know that immediately who is responsible for the fire. If, however, there is a cost share, there could be some delays within the coding queue because we can't process an invoice through until we know exactly who's the financial the the financial responsibility partner for this. After the coder does their coding information to your packet, they'll hit submit and send it on to the eligibility checker. This is the person you're probably going to be dealing with the most. If there's anything wrong with your package, they're going to have to return it to your queue. Once again, it'll come back into your queue, into the data entry queue. The reason is we are no longer able to modify. When we were doing paper, we could scribble through your paper and change it for you. We cannot do that now. In this electronic system, we are locked out of making modifications to your bills. So what we will do is we will return it to your queue. We do not expect you to be logged on all day long waiting to see if something comes back to your queue. We also want you to be fully aware of what the issue is. So our team is going to be contacting you via email and or voicemail and letting you know what is wrong with the package and exactly what needs to be fixed. But you'll see this, if it gets rejected back to you in your queue, you're going to see this big triangle here that's telling you it got rejected back. We'll add notes to the package in here. We'll also contact you. As phase 2 in the future, we have asked for modifications to include the ability for the system to email you when we return a package to you, so that you do not have to keep checking and we don't have to keep emailing you. To let you know there's a package in here that needs some fixing and we will tell you what needs to be fixed. So assuming everything is okay, it's come back to the eligibility checker. They said, okay, we've got what we need now, and they hit submit. Then it goes to this role called Invoice Er. And as you can see, some of these invoices have the green bar all the way to the end. That means it's totally done and totally paid. And if I hover my mouse right over this, you can see that that was actually paid. And this one's actually paid. And this one's actually paid. If the green bar, though, is not all the way to the end and there's no dollar sign here, what that means is that your package is moved to the Invoice Er role, and we run a report every night and load it into our financial system. And then it may take 2-3 days at the most for the financial system to kick back and tell us that they've made payment. Once they've made payment, we will go in and enter the payment against this, and you can see exactly what you've been paid. That's the basics of our system. It's a workflow system. It moves from one queue to the next and can move backwards or forwards within those queues. Let's start now with, one other thing to keep in mind. Something we've asked for in phase 2 as well is currently, if you create this billing document, so you're going to go in and create a brand new bill, you are the only one who can see it in your office. So if you have 4 data entry people in your office and you go on vacation and you say, can you jump in there and finish this bill for me? They can't do it because they can't see it. So please be aware, if you're going to go on vacation or out of town, make sure that you do not start a bill that you expect to be finished until you get back. So we're going to start, we're going to say, we have a new billing document we need to create. Go to the Fire button. The Project button is something Utah uses. We do not use that, so use the Fire button. Once you are on this screen, you will note that this screen contains every required field before you can move forward. So all these little asterisks are required fields. This is actually required, but it's not going to stop you from moving forward. We'll get into that. But right now, you cannot move forward on your package. Everything's grayed out except this little area here because it has to be filled out. So for Colorado, we have the Irwin system that is feeding in every incident in Colorado into this fire billing system. So if there was a fire within Colorado, you're going to be able to find it here. The only exception is if it's a preposition, an ABCD miscellaneous, or a support code. Those are not contained in Irwin. So if you happen to come upon one of those as one of your fires and it hasn't been set up yet, please be sure to check first, because it may be somebody's already asked our office to set it up. So you don't have to ask for it again. It may already be there. But for Colorado, you can type in either the name or the number, the incident number, to find the fire. If, however, it is an out-of-state incident, the only way to find an out-of-state incident is by the incident number. You cannot type the name. It will not locate it. Unless, once again, unless it's already set up in the system. So I'm going to show you one as an example. Here's one called Lost Jack Lake. As you can see, it says no incidents found because this is an actual Alaska fire. So I'm going to say, oh, wait, I was supposed to type in the actual code. Now I want you to notice something else here. Always type to the end, 904662. So this is the incident number for this Alaska fire. It cannot find it anywhere. But I want you to note that when you're looking at your resource orders, you're going to see the way the resource order looks is this way, with a dash in between there. Irwin does not have that dash in there, so never type in that dash. So this is not found. So you say, oh, it's not found? Right here. Click on this little button right here that says can't find your incident, question mark. Click here. Type in the year. Type in the number again that you just did, AKSWS-904662, and hit Add Incident. It's going to go out to the database and start looking for that out-of-state incident. As you can see, it successfully imported the incident and it brought it into the page right here. So always remember to check here before you contact us to say, I can't find it, because it will find it if you click on this button. So we're going to go with that fire, Lost Jack Lake in Alaska. Beginning dates and ending dates. Please be sure you include all dates for your fire. What that means is if you're traveling, say for 2 days, be sure you include those 2 days that you're traveling, not the day you started at the fire. So we're going to say this one. And your end date needs to include all the dates you need to get paid. So let's say you return from the fire after 2 weeks and you have 2 days of R&R. Those 2 days of R&R will not be on a shift ticket, but you need to be paid for them. Please put in those extra 2 days at the end, or this system will not allow you to put in charges. You have to have the full date range here. So for my example, I'm just going to say 9/2 to 9/5. Request number. It gives you little helpful hints right here if you ever need help. The request number is your resource order number. So what I suggest if it's more than one person is that you do like C-3 engine 12. If it's one person, I would put in their actual name, Smith. This is a free-form field, but it is required, so you have to put in your resource order. Let's say you're on a 1 of 2 incidents. You went from incident 1 to incident 2, and you did not get an actual resource order for incident 2. You're reassigned. Please type that in here, reassigned. That way we know why you do not have a resource order attached for this fire. We're going to leave that one, and we're going to say, yeah, we're going to say this is 2 of 2. Now I'm going to do 1 of 2. This one right now is actually not required in letting you push forward, but we will contact you if you did not fill it out. The reason for that is because we are using this information to tie your packages together. For instance, let's say you were on this Lost Lake fire from 9/2 to 9/5, and on 9/5, they contacted you and said, can you go over to this other fire? So we need to tie those 2 packages together because you're going to have salary information that's half a day on one fire and half a day on another. You may have equipment that's being used on both fires, and we need to tie those 2 packages together within the system. So always, always, always fill out 1 of 2, 2 of 2, 1 of 3, whatever the case may be. Even if it's 1 of 1, just let us know that. You only have 1 package. It makes it so much easier for us to find things. In the notes, you can put any relevant information you find, but for multiple fires, what I would do is just put in like fire 1 is Lost Jack Lake. Fire 2 is, I don't know, ABCD miscellaneous. That way we know the name of the second package to go look for in the queue. So now you see that everything's still grayed out, but once I hit that save button down at the bottom, it's going to allow us to move forward. It's going to allow us to move forward with finishing the package. So I'm going to hit save. Now every one of these little tabs is opened up so you can get to it. You can also get to it by the next button at the bottom. If there's anything else I need to cover with you on this area, No, I think that's everything. Okay, so we're going to start with the next button now. So that just takes you to the next tab. Like I said, you can click here if you want to, or you can just hit the next button and it'll roll you through the tabs. So on the personnel and equipment page, this is where you're going to put in, obviously, your personnel and your equipment. So you're going to go right here for Add Personnel. The drop-down information that you're seeing here was set up by your CRRF or SURF manager within the system. It's the salary for all of your people. So I'm going to start with Robert Big. So Robert Big's information in this box at the top is coming from that SURF table that we're going to set up at the end of training. So as you can see, Robert Big is a supplemental or volunteer at position pay rates. He makes $22 an hour. He has 10% overhead, which means indirect. Because he's a supplemental, you can get 10% indirect reimbursed to your department. Not for full-time employees, only for supplemental or volunteers at position pay rates. His benefit is 22% of his salary. So this is his billing rate, is the total of his benefits and his pay. He also has overtime, and he gets benefit rates for his overtime. And here's his overtime billing rate, which is these two added together. You cannot edit that from the screen. If it's wrong, you need to get a hold of your SURF manager to go into the system, modify the table to the correct information, delete this, and set it back up again. Add him again. So it'll bring in all the relevant information. In the notes section, please include their shifts. This really helps us so that we have that information and know how to look at their overtime. In this case, they're supplemental or volunteer, so they probably don't have any set shifts. So for him, we're going to say, down here is where you're going to start putting in information. In phase 2, we have asked for a modification of this, so this will not be as cumbersome as it is right now. But we're going to say, right now you have to use this. So what this is a green bar that you're adjusting with your mouse. You're going to click on their start time and their end times. And because the boxes are small, sometimes it can be difficult to line them up. If you make a mistake, you can just hover over it and delete it. Your only two choices are whether they're being paid regular or overtime right now for this day. So for 9/2, remember I told you about the date range at the beginning? See how it only set up 4 days? If you had something on 9/6, that's not going to work. It's going to make you delete this whole thing and start over. So please get your date right. So let's say he left at 9 a.m. and he got there at 1800 hours. And at the bottom, it's automatically telling you how many hours that is. So if you're comparing it to your CTRs, you can easily tell if you made a mistake. They're going to say he did that, and then he had some overtime on this day. And then he made some overtime on this day, and this day. So all you're doing is dragging green bars either in the regular or overtime category, and it'll sum it up at the bottom. Once you hit save, it's going to calculate the total amount of regular hours, overtime hours, and total amount of money that you're going to get reimbursed for this person. Let's try adding another one because I want to show you some different things. What you're seeing here is their first name and their last name in the system. We always have you add the extra qualifiers after their last name if they are ever paid more than their normal base pay. Prime example would be Tim Smith here. Tim Smith, we're going to pick Tim Smith. So here's how much Tim Smith is a full-time employee. He makes $23 an hour. He has benefits of $15.02, so his billing rate is $38.02. His overtime is $36, benefit rate 85 cents, $36.85. So this is his billing rate for his base salary. So this is a prime example of he was out on this fire, and let's say 9/3 was Labor Day. Tim Smith makes a lot more on holidays than he does as his regular pay. So what you would do here is you would fill out how much hours he had, how many hours he had on 9/2, 9/4, and 9/5. And you would save that. You're going to leave 9/3 blank because that's holiday. We're going to hit save. So now you would go out and add Tim Smith again, but Tim Smith's holiday pay. So now you got Tim Smith base pay, Tim Smith holiday pay. And this is how much Tim makes for his holiday pay. So for 9/3, you add in the hours he's going to make for 9/3 at his holiday rate, or he could have overtime holiday rates, and hit save. So now you do have two tabs we have asked for, and we're going to talk about that more when I talk about setting up people. But we've asked in phase 2 that we would have the system have the ability to add these two into one payroll record, so you don't have two different tabs here for Tim. Unfortunately, right now, that is how the system operates, so we do have to have you set up two different pay scales for Tim. So I'm going to reiterate again. When you go down here to Tim, when you set up his last name, you're going to put in why you're paying him something different. So Tim Smith's base pay, Tim Smith's holiday pay. In this example, Tammy Smith makes base pay, but she's serving as a backfill person. So that's her two different pay scales. If Lisa Johnson here has no difference in pay, doesn't matter if it's a holiday, doesn't matter if it's anything, they're always going to make their set pay. They only need one record. In this example, Jane Doe, she was making $25 an hour until June 30th, and then starting 7/1, she's making $27 an hour. You may want those to be active for the fire season. You can disable this old one once it's past June 30th if you want to, but she'll need both records in case she's on a fire between 6:30 and 7/2, let's say. So this is how you set up people. Something I wanted to point out as well is backfill. So now we're going to say Candy Cane. Candy Cane is a supplemental employee who's backfilling for Robert Big. So in here, you need to type in the backfill, Robert Big, so that we know Candy's filling in for Robert, and these hours are for Candy's time. So Candy, you give her her time. And this is Candy's pay scale. And then you hit save. So it is accumulating at the bottom the total for all personnel. But now you can see you have Robert's salary, Tim's base salary, Tim's holiday salary, and Candy Cane's backfill salary. So now we've added all the people to the fire. Please be aware, if you have a 0 in benefits, we're going to be contacting you. All employees are required to have a minimum of workers' compensation. Let's say, for instance, so you paid your workers' comp at $5 a day. So that is not in the personnel setup table. Please note that here and let us know that. So say workers' comp paid at $5 a day, C, and I will show you where you put this, C, miscellaneous section. That way we'd know why you have $0 for benefits, because like I said, you have to pay them, or you have to be submitting workers' compensation at a minimum. So assuming that was 0, let's hit save. So now all your people are done. Once you're done with your people, you can go to add your equipment now. The equipment list that you see here is coming from an external web EOC system called Surf Manager, CRRF. It has nothing to do with the Surf Manager role in this software. Our Surf role within this software is where we're dumping that information from that external system. So in this case, this is all Denver Fire Department's equipment that they have that's active within Web EOC. And every night, our system, our fire billing system, goes out to their Surf system in Web EOC, pulls in the most recent equipment information. Please be sure your Web EOC is up to date, or you're not going to be able to bill your equipment. We're going to go down here and pick a piece of equipment. I'm going to pick this engine. Again, you cannot change your surf information from this software. It has to be changed from the external software and fed into this. If, however, let's say you had a truck or something you just added today and you want to bill for it, you need to make sure it's active within the web EOC system, and you can hit this Sync Surf button. It'll bring in the most up-to-date list of equipment you have within that surf system. Otherwise, it updates every night. So here's the data that came from that surf system right here in this box. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong box. Here we go. Sorry, in this box. We do not use minimal staffing, standard staffing, max staffing. That's a Utah configuration. We don't use development rates, any of that information here. So what you see here is all you really need in order to bill. It has an hourly rate and a daily rate on this piece of equipment. So in order to enter your time, is the same premise you're doing as with your people, is you're going to have a green bar drag down for the hours that equipment was on the fire. The only two choices for equipment is regular time or travel time. So we're going to say on day 1 they were traveling, and on day 3 they were working, or sorry, day 2 they were working this, day 3 they were working this, and day 4 they were working this. If this was package 1 of 2, you need to fill in how many total hours that they worked on 9/5 with this piece of equipment. So let's say on 9/5 you got redeployed halfway through the day. So you put this fire's amount of time here, which is 8 hours, and then you put how many hours total you worked on both fires. So in this case, I'm going to say 12 hours total. The system knows to calculate out what percentage 8 hours is of 12 hours and apply it to this fire. So it's critical that you put in the total number of hours. It's also going to be on the next fire, on fire 2 that you went to. It's going to ask for the same thing on the first day. What's the total hours? So you'll put 12 hours on this one. So it knows day 1 how much proration to calculate for that day. So like I said, be sure you put in, if you're on more than one fire, the total hours at the bottom here in this little box, and it will do what you need. Something to keep in mind is please contact our office if you ever run into a situation where your piece of equipment is not on the fire this first day or this last day. We've programmed this software, which will be fixed in phase 2, but we've programmed it to recognize how Colorado works with daily minimums. You do not get the minimum daily guarantee of $1,064 on the first day or the last day of the fire. But if your equipment's not there, the system gets confused. So contact us and we'll be happy to walk you through how to remedy that situation until the new implementation is in. So it knows what to apply and how much to apply it. You hit save and it auto calculates it for you. Something else I want to go back to on people just real quickly. If you're looking at your people and they do have R&R, I forgot to mention this, but this isn't a good example because they weren't out on the deployment 14 days or more. But let's say they had been out on the deployment 16 days. Whichever days are R&R, you're not going to have a shift ticket for it. Please mark that little box so that we know why you don't have a shift ticket. Also, if you have rehab time, so let's say this wasn't R&R, this was rehab on 9/5. Please be sure you include that information for your people. Equipment is not eligible for rehab time, only people are. We've already built in the cost of that rehab time into your surf rates. So this is only for how much time was spent on this day doing rehab work. So be sure you note that up here so we are aware of that. Again, rehab is only for people, and it's only 4 hours maximum that's allowed. It's for engines, tenders, and ambulances only. Also, if this is the first time you're submitting people this year and you have not sent in your personal resource status report, you can send it in with your first submission here, but we will need that information. Be sure you note also on your people the new rules for this year. It's not basing for all supplementals and volunteers, and no set pay policy at your home base. If you don't have a set pay policy, all supplementals and volunteers get overtime for anything over 8 hours a day. It's not based on 40 hours a week, it's 8 hours a day. So be sure you input that correctly when you're putting in your people. So getting back to equipment. One of the things you'll notice here on your equipment is this section here. This is a Utah section. You don't need to fill anything out here. We don't use that. For your mileage reimbursement over 300 miles, this is the one that you pull your information off your equipment transport page. You still have to fill out that form, equipment transport form, and put the information here of any miles driven over 300 miles. So I'm just going to say 100 miles. The system knows to go out and calculate $1 per mile and give you that rate. So we're going to say save here. Once again, this is not your personal mileage. This is for the equipment. So now you can keep adding more and more equipment if you need to, just like you did with people, or you can say you're done at this point and move forward. I can move forward by either clicking here or clicking next at the bottom of the page. I'm going to hit save just to make sure I saved it. And then I'm going to do it at the top this time. I'm going to go to the next little tab here, expenses. The individual travel breakdown form that you are required to attach for your expenses, you can get that by clicking here if you don't have one readily available. But you will need to fill that out and attach it at the end of this process. And I'll go over that with you where you can see where you need to attach that. You also have a link here to the GSA website where you can look up rates. Be sure you're using the right fiscal year when you're looking up rates. And remember that meals are based on where you spent the night. So we like to encourage our cooperators to use GSA rates whenever possible. This eliminates you having to keep and track individual receipts, and it keeps us from having to review all your individual receipts. If you want to use GSA rates, we're all for that. Just remember that receipts cannot exceed the GSA rates. We still can only give you the maximum of the GSA rates anyway. So let's say you're going to use receipts for meals. Just check that little box that tells us to look for receipts and fill in the total amount for all meals for all employees on this fire. This is not per person. This is for the entire fire. So if you had 3 people on this fire, then you need to include all of their total meals that's coming off this breakdown form and put it here. You can see that in the illustrations on the training guide as well. But we're going to say it was $102 that you spent. Non-travel status is not used in Colorado. That's used in Utah, so you can ignore this field right here. Hotels require receipts, so this box really isn't necessary, but please check it to let us know you have hotel bills. And once again, it's the total amount of hotel bills for everybody on the fire for the entire term of the fire. Non-travel status, we do not use. Something else to mention, just to save yourself some time, if you are filling out an individual travel breakdown and you have, say, 4 people on the fire that all have the same cost, you stayed in the same hotels, you spent the same GSA rates for their meals, you can put them on one travel breakdown form. Just put at the top of the form, this is for all 4 people, and we'll just take the total and divide by 4. So that is definitely available to you. You don't have to do individual ones. For fuel expense, you're going to need to fill out the fuel summary form that you always fill out for any of your department-owned equipment fuel. So let's say that was $45. Now we're going to get to invoice prep fees. This has been a bone of contention this year. Our federal partners have changed the rules. It used to be that we could submit them invoices with your invoice prep fees on them, and if they ever wanted to audit those, they could come back and audit them and make sure you have all of the information required to get paid for that. However, the rules have changed for 2019. They are requiring backup documentation before you can get paid for it. So what that means is you're going to have to provide either your paycheck stub or your payroll system report, something that payroll would spit out for you, showing how much you were paid and that you were paid within the period of time you specify here. So let's say you filled this out on 9/10. If your payroll runs 9/1 to 9/14, perfect. If you have payroll that runs 9/15 to 9/30, that won't cover this date range. So it has to be within this date range, and you need to explain how you got your total. Sometimes it's really obvious. I make $20 an hour and I worked 10 hours, so I get $200. Straightforward, no problem, easy to figure out. If it's not easy to figure out, let's say your pay stub only shows your total amount you made. It doesn't say anything about how much was benefits, how much is your hourly wage. Please handwrite that on the actual backup documentation because we have to be able to prove how you got to your total. I'm going to say I'm the preparer. I make $23.22 an hour. Like I said, be sure to tell us how you got that. And I worked 1.5 hours on this. Hit the add button. Do not think saving at the bottom is going to save this information. You have to hit the add button. The reason is that you can add more than one person who's doing invoice prep. You might have two people doing invoice prep. And by the way, if you hit the add button more than once, it will add it twice and then you can actually delete it. So let's say I made a mistake. I can delete this if I want to. Okay, let's say somebody else was working on this. Jay Smith was working on this. He makes $15 an hour and he worked 2 hours on it. So see how it's adding individual ones to the package below? Once you actually have this filled out, you can hit the sign button. Our federal partners are allowing us to submit electronic signatures as backup instead of the actual manual paper hand signed signatures. So hit sign. Once you've signed it, it'll stamp this and it will also show up on the bill at the very end of the process, which I'll show you. But once you've signed it, it will electronically stamp it. If you made a mistake here, you can unsign it and go fix whatever you did. Let's say, oh no, I just wanted to sign it. So now I've signed my invoice prep fees. Miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is supposed to be used for things that cannot be captured somewhere else. As I mentioned previously, let's say you were paying somebody $5 a day for workers' comp. There's no way to capture that in the actual payroll table. So here I would put $5 a day for workers' comp, $20 for 4 days at $5 a day. There's no limit to what you can type here, so please be specific about what this is for. Once again, hit the add button and it will add it down here so you can see it. You can certainly delete it and retype it if you want. One of the other things that I want you to keep in mind, if you have a FEP engine, which is the engines that Colorado supplies to some of the smaller and volunteer departments, those engines are reimbursable to your department at $50 a day. We can bill our jurisdictional partners for the full surf rate for that piece of equipment in order to keep that program going. So we do not want you to add your FEP engines in the engine section. So back here when you were adding equipment, your FEP engine is actually going to be in the surf dropdown. Please do not add it here. If you add it here, we're going to have to kick it back to you because it's going to show the full billing rate for that piece of equipment when only you're entitled to $50 a day. So go back to this tab. And we're going to say you're putting your FEP engine here. So you get $50 a day. You were there 3 days. I would put that in, $50 a day times 3 days. And hit add. That's all you need to do. We are working for a solution with our partners on that in the future, but for now, that's the only way to get your FEP engine reimbursed is through here. The final thing that you can actually put in miscellaneous would be repair replacement. We really encourage you. That is looked very closely by our federal partners, and I would hate to pay you for something and it does not get reimbursed by our federal partners, then we have to come back and get it back from you. So an S number is not necessarily a guarantee that you're going to get paid for something. You actually have to have your finance section chief, the incident business advisor at the fire, or an agency administrator at the fire to approve the expense. It has to be an expense that was caused by the fire, not a flat tire getting to the fire, not lost items at the fire. It has to actually be caused by the fire. So if you got a signature on the documentation that says, yes, this was caused by the fire, please put that expense in here. We will always reach out to our federal partners beforehand and make sure it's actually reimbursable. Pair of front tire, let's say that was blown up on, the fire caught the tire on fire. So that's $500 for one tire. We can only reimburse you for what's authorized. So yes, most of the time a dealership will tell you we need to replace both tires. If one tire blows out, we can only pay you for the one tire that was authorized to be replaced. So tire blowout. I'm going to add that here. So that's generally what you can put in miscellaneous. Everything else should be captured somewhere else. For rental expenses, this is for your car rentals. So if you are going to rent a vehicle, you would put that here. If, however, you are using the new FEP program, or sorry, not FEP program, the NERV program, NERV, which is National Emergency Rental Vehicle Program that the feds are offering, where they provide you with the rental car, please let us know that in the notes down here. Otherwise, we're going to wonder, why are you putting rental car fuel on this fire when you didn't have a rental car? So you could put used NERV vehicle. That way we know why you're putting in rental vehicle expense. Okay, let's say you weren't using the NERV. So now you're going to add your rental car. And again, hit the add button. Always hit the add button. If you don't like what you put, you can delete it. And I keep reiterating, this is in your queue. You can do anything you want to with it until you actually hit the submit button. Once you've submitted, then you can't. This section here is for Utah. We don't do damage deductibles here, so you can ignore that. Air ground travel will be everything else you can possibly spend on air ground travel. Let's say your personal vehicle mileage. Be sure you include maps that show the distance between locations when you're putting in personal vehicle mileage costs. I always put in here like to fire and return, and whatever the amount is, $27. Let's say you had to take a shuttle to rental car agency, $125. We're all about notes here, by the way. If it's not clear, please add notes so we know what you're doing. Like, why would you take a taxi if you had a rental car? So this helps to explain why you had a taxi. And again, here's all the choices you have. Please be aware, baggage. We can only reimburse you for 2 standard bags. We cannot reimburse you for overweight bags or more than 2 bags unless it's specified on your resource order. So please don't submit that. We won't be able to pay you for it. In this case, we're going to assume that's not the case because you're not on an airline right now. Okay, so there's all your air ground travel expenses. And we're going to hit save. So it tells you what your expense total is. You can add any notes you think are applicable that we need to know about your expenses. If you have department personal vehicle mileage rates that are different from what the GSA allows for mileage rates for your personal vehicle, please add that note down here so that we know that you have department rates. Okay, so now you're done with your whole package. Again, you can hit next, or you can just go to the end. The next tab is statistics. That's something that Utah utilizes. We don't. They track accidents and injuries via this page. We don't do that. So let's go to overview. In the overview tab, there's actually 4 little tabs down here that you're going to be using. The first one is a summary. So this is how much your total bill is. If you want to see what it looks like, you can actually click on the bill, and it's going to give you a summary. It automatically assigns a bill number to it, and it summarizes all the incident information you put in at the beginning: Lost Jack Lake Fire, Denver Fire Department, the date range you were there, the incident number, the financial code for it, and how much total you're asking for. And this is the individual breakdown information that's coming from the electronic tabs for personnel, for your equipment, and for your expenses. You can see the electronic signature here that shows I signed it on behalf of these 2 people who prepared the invoices. Provides all the notes that you typed up, and then it has a total. So once you're sure that's right, if it's not right, like I said, you can edit it at any time. You have not submitted it yet. So this packet button, though, is for your backup. So as soon as we add your backup documentation, that'll have something in it. So we're going to go here now to supporting docs. This is where you get to choose what you want to attach. You need to attach at least your CTRs or your OF288. If you're on a fire incident that has a finance team and they provide you with an OF288, you do not need to send in your CTRs unless there's something wrong with your OF288. You're welcome to send in both, but you are not required to. The attachments that you have can either be a Word document, an Excel document, a JPEG, a picture. It doesn't accept PowerPoint documents. Hopefully you don't need to submit anything like that, but it will accept pretty much any other type of document. It has a 4 megabyte file limit right now. We've asked for an expansion on that. That should be significant enough to attach everything as one attachment. If, however, you want to break it out into different attachments, that's also okay. So let's say you wanted to attach this. I'm just pretending it's my CTRs. And then you got to attach your resource orders. And then you've got to attach whatever else you need to attach. You can just continue to attach until you're done. Once you have everything attached that you want to attach, you're going to go here. If there's anything you want to tell us in general, go ahead. Otherwise, once you hit this approve button for Lost Jack Lake Fire, it's going to leave your queue. So we're going to do that. And we're going to go to your queue. Now you can see Lost Jack Lake Fire is no longer here. No more delete button for you. You can certainly go in and look at it by clicking on this button, but it's not going to let you change anything because it's not in your queue. If you hit submit and you went, oh no, that's a mistake, didn't mean to, contact us and we will push that back to you. Our contact information is on the first pages of the training guide and on the last page of the training guide. As we discussed, each one of these shows you where your package is at any given time. You can actually see where it's moving through the queue. All right, that is how you put in a package. Now let's go over what the SURF manager needs to do. So let's go, I'm going to pretend I'm the SURF manager for Denver Fire Department. And again, all this data is fake, but it's information I can teach you from. The tabs within the SURF manager are this general tab for SURF. It just gives some overall information. It's not really helpful. You can't do anything with this page. It's just a list of all your equipment. For incidents, you can look up incidents if you want to. But once again, there's nothing you can actually modify on this page. It's just looking at incidents. Manage employees is what you're going to need to be able to do. So the first thing I want to show you on manage employees is that you can sort. So say you want to sort by first name or last name or user ID or fire billing rate. You can sort by all of those different fields. We've asked for a modification in phase 2 to lock these headers, because if you have a lot of employees, you're not going to be able to see those headers when you get down to the bottom. But for now, we're going to say this is what you need to do. So I wanted to show you a few examples of how to set up people. Tim Smith was my first person. Tim Smith, I want to go by last name. So Tim Smith here is a regular full-time employee, and I set up his last name and his user ID exactly the same. We encourage people to use the same last name and user ID. So in this case, I should have put in L. Johnson for their last name, just because it's easier to actually sort and actually find people if you have the same user ID and last name. When you are in your drop-down list of employees, the only fields you are seeing is this and this. So if Robert Big went out on a fire and I was getting ready to pay him, I would need to know which Robert Big role he was on. Was he on as an FFT1 or an FFT2 on the fire? So please be sure you put in why this is a different pay scale. You only have to create a separate record if they're paid differently for different roles, for a salary increase, for a holiday, for a backfill, whatever the case may make something different, then you need to create multiple records. So I'm going to go with Tim Smith and just show you his full profile. So his first name's Tim, his last name's Smith, and this is his base salary. As you can imagine, Smith might be a very popular last name across the state. If somebody else has already created a Smith record, then you're going to have to add a 1 to his name, or a 2, or a 3. I'm going to make him a 2 on this one. Let's just say it came back and said duplicate. If it says duplicate, just add a 2 to their name. So Tim's base salary as a full-time employee is down here at the bottom. And I set it up on the previous page, and his overtime is here. His benefits, though, you need to set up on this page. So your choices are, you can pay him either percentages or dollars. Some departments pay dollars, some pay percentages. Most pay percentages. So you change both of these with percentage. So what is his benefit rates for his base pay? I'm going to say 15%. And what is his benefit rate for his overtime pay? 18%. So that's what this is. Once again, toggle back and forth. Make sure you have the right thing set up for them. And hit save. So I'm going to go back and show you Tim again. So what I had done when I set up Tim is I said Tim's base pay. I put in his fire rate, which is base pay. His overtime. Overhead, again, that 10% is only valid for supplemental or volunteers at position pay rates. It is not available for full-time and part-time employees or volunteers, straight volunteers. So all you have to do is create that. So we're going to create a new record. Let's call this one Jill Jilly. Jill Jilly makes the same amount no matter what she does. She doesn't get extra holiday pay. She doesn't get anything else. So we're going to say Jill Jilly makes $10 an hour. She makes $12 an hour overtime. She does not get overhead because she's a full-time employee. That automatically fills in with your department. You skip seasonal, we don't use that. Skip red card issued, we don't use that. Skip engine boss, we don't use that. Enabled is automatically checked when you set somebody up. If she quit though, if Jilly quit, you can disable her just by unclicking that little button there. And then you go to edit profile. So this is some of the stuff I wanted to show you with what is not set up yet. So you have to come to this page. Your choices for employee rate type are either it's her regular pay or holiday pay. So say she gets a different rate for holidays, select that, or special pay. Special pay is used where you may pay them one day a year, you may pay them more money because it's their birthday. Whatever the case may be, if it's your department policy, it may be her special pay rate, put that in there. Otherwise, it would just be her normal pay or holiday. For the employee role, unless the employee role affects their pay, you don't need to select anything here. So you would go down to the bottom and put not listed. That's because if Jilly makes something different as a team unit leader, and then she has another pay record for wildland fire investigator, that's what these are for. These are only if she makes a different amount of money based on what she's doing at the fire. So in this case, I'm going to say no because she's making the same amount of money no matter what she's doing at the fire. The start date and end dates are for your records only. Let's say Jilly gets a increase during the middle of fire season. So if she was on the fire from 9/1 to 9/6 and she got a raise here, you might want to put her first salary ends on 09/03/2019. And the next one that you set up that starts 9/4, you put the start date 9/4 on the next pay record, just so you have record of why you did that. How long is this pay good for? Username. This is critical. The username is what we are going to use in phase 2 to combine all the records for each employee. So we're trying to get all of these consolidated. As I showed you in the beginning, I don't want to have a bunch of tabs for Jilly. I want to have one tab for Jilly. So you want to set up a username that you're going to use for every one of her records. So I would use her first name, last name. It's up to you because that's what's going to combine it. We don't use seasonal here, and she's not serving as a backfill for this pay rate. So none of that matters. So again, you go down and fill out her benefits. And return. Now, if I was to set up another Jilly, it's not going to let me type the exact same. I can't tell if there's 2 L's there. Oh, no, there isn't. It's not going to let me type the exact same thing. It's going to think it's a duplicate ID. So if you decided Jill does have a separate thing, you can make this one say holiday, let's say. You forgot Jill makes more money on the holiday. So she makes $25 an hour on the holiday, and she makes $45 an hour. 0, full-time, still full-time. Go to edit profile. You do the exact same thing. She's not making something different because of her role on the fire. So she's full-time, regular pay. Oh, is this holiday? Sorry, holiday pay. Doesn't matter start and end date for this one, but once again, I need Jilly. So copy the exact same username you had before for benefits. Save and return. So that's how you set up employees. If you went into one, like I said, and you didn't want them enabled anymore because they're no longer here, you can just disable them with that little button, or on the previous page, it has a button as well. And that'll remove it from your list here. It'll remove it from being added to a bill. But I set up Jane Doe here. Here's a good example for Jane Doe. Jane Doe made $25 an hour until June the 30th. This is where I added in until June the 30th, she's making this pay. When you actually set up a fire and try to bill, this is what's going to show. so that you know to pick this one if she's on a fire at that date. Let's go back. And I had the second one for Jane Doe where she actually got an increase. So as of 7/1, she got a raise. So she's still a regular employee who makes full-time salary as of 7/1, $27 an hour, and filled in her benefits. So this should be the basic way you fill out employees. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. We love answering your questions and helping you. Our information, our contact information is listed in the packet. If I'm available, I'd be happy to help you. I always encourage people to use the generic DFPC Fire email just because that can get answered a lot quicker. If I happen to not be here, I don't want you to think I'm ignoring you. So please be sure you use the generic email if at all possible. One other thing we like to encourage our cooperators to do is sign up for EFT. That's electronic funds transfer. You will get paid significantly faster with electronic funds, and it will email you the remittance for what you're getting paid for. So if you're interested in that, please contact us. We will set you up with EFT as soon as you let us know. Also, one other thing is if you find areas of improvement that you need to do, please let us know, and we will get back to you with that information and let you know if we've already included it in phase 2. And thank you for your time and attention to this, and we look forward to processing your bills for you. Thank you.